one quick thing more on this page.
Okay.
Somebody asked, well, you defined it on H1 to be blue. Now, does that automatically go to all the other ones?
No.
So could you change some of the H2s you just did to H1s and show them that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we're basically trying to get at with the efficiency of using internal CSS, or even more efficient when we get into using external CSS, is the fact that if you use inline CSS, you've got to style it every single time you want to create something. So down here, if I were to change the second heading, which was initially a 2 and is now a 1, we are going to see that it's going to get bigger, but it's going to be black. Because we use inline CSS, it is only attacking the one H1 and not H1s in general, which is why using the internal CSS is a much better option. Similarly, it gets a little bit more, a little bit more complex than what we just talked about. But let's say I wanted to make the line height, the spacing basically between my paragraphs a little bit bigger. I could say, okay, I want every single paragraph to have a line height of 20 pixels. This again is what are you trying to style? The selector, in this case the paragraph. What are you trying to do? Right? I'm trying to affect the line height. And okay, what do you want to do with the line height? I want to make it 20 pixels between each line. What you're going to see here, just that one teeny little bit of CSS is now going to cause a whole lot more spacing between each one of these paragraph lines. And I'm not saying it's going to look pretty, but you get the idea. Okay. I didn't see it change. There we go. Just needed to be bigger. So you get an idea. This one up here is styled as a paragraph, and as a result, we have this huge bit of line spacing that's happening between through using the line height property. More questions, Jerry?
Well, somebody asked, how does it know between the difference that it's using internal or inline? It's just how the browser interprets it. It typically inline overrides using the internal and so on. That's why it's called cascading style sheets.
Understanding the cascading effect is somewhat challenging. We'll do our best to define that for you, but it knows it because it's reading the HTML. The browser knows it because it specifically understands all of this. And it understands that, hey, look, I found the style attribute attached to this H1 and to nothing else. It also knows that, hey, I don't have, it's not like you can't use this, is what I'm trying to say. You cannot take this type of CSS and paste it down here and expect that it's going to work. It will not. If you're going to use inline CSS, it has to be formatted exactly as I'm showing you right here. Again, starts with the attribute, equals, and then in quotation marks, the property and its value, exactly as we've defined. And if it does, it knows what to do with it. But again, it only will affect this one and nothing else.
Okay. And some people asked, where does the style section go? Does it have to be in the head?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just say that some browsers sometimes will pick it up elsewhere, but it's supposed to be in the head. So don't, if it happens to work elsewhere, you're lucky, but its proper place is in the head.
Right. You will see, and of course, obviously, if you're using inline styles, you're going to see it inside the body, right? I mean, that's, this is CSS, but it's being used inside of the body tag. When we're talking about internal CSS, its proper position for this statement, again, what you want to start off with is the style tags, and then the individual CSS definitions are placed in between these. And you can have as many or as few as you'd like.
Okay. We will be getting into CSS in depth, so and explain a lot more of what can be done and not be done with CSS. So we have one asking, what's the difference between the closings like /b tag versus the br / tag?
Okay. The BR is, and that's a basic tag too, the BR tag is a line break. It basically says, I want you to start a new line right here and right now. So let's take this first paragraph, for example. Right now, it's outputting this entire text as a paragraph. And let me get rid of this wackiness. We'll save that. We'll go look at it in the browser real quick now that I've gotten rid of the line height, put it back where it was. Okay, so we've got this one paragraph and it's all together. Well, what would happen if you want this word here, vestibulum, to start on the next line? So basically just start on the next line. You could use the BR tag. It's not a bold tag. It stands for line break. And how that's done is simply finding where you want to cause the event to happen and to put in BR like this. Now, we talked at the very beginning of this webinar in regards to elements and the fact that they needed to be opened and closed. In HTML 4.01, which is kind of like the oldest version of HTML that's really supported by most browsers, you could use BR exactly as I'm showing you, and it would be proper. It would be fine. Please note, though, in XHTML and in HTML5, every single tag should be opened and closed. Because this is another empty element, we talked about the image tag being an empty element. This is another one. It's really best if you open and close it in the same tag. That's how it's done. You simply space after the BR and then hit the /. So both will work in HTML5, and it's not technically incorrect in HTML 4.01. I just misspoke. It will work fine in HTML4, and it's not improper in HTML4, but most likely you'll probably be building your pages in either XHTML or HTML5. It's best to just get in this practice of closing any empty element, and that's what this is. So BR space / and then the angle bracket is the way that you self-close it. And when I hit refresh, we'll see this next line is going to kick down. That's what the line break is for. Got more?
Someone was asking about the PR code tag was actually showing up in the web page. I don't remember seeing that when you had the original thing from HTML Ipsum. You had that.
The what tag was?
The pre-code tag was actually showing up on the web page, and I'm not quite sure what you mean. I thought that was working fine. So
yeah, we can go put it back real quick, but yeah, I don't think that's.
Yeah.
Oh, just copy the whole thing to my clipboard. I don't want the whole thing.
I'm not exactly sure what they were seeing. You see the code because it's not parsed code. It's not properly formatted.
Let's see here where I'm at. Okay, so what we're going to do is just go put we'll go put the pre back and save that. And go back to our live page. Okay, so we've got the pre-formatted text back, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, now that isn't actually code. Even though it looks like code, it's not interpreted as HTML. This is what you use when you want to put an example. Like if we were to post on a page, here's what you want to do to change your headers and stuff. We would use the code tag, so it says that this is code and it's formatted properly. And we use the pre-formatting tag to say we have spaces. So this is just outputting format. It's not interpreted code. It also isn't have style tags around it. It's not formatted to actually be interpreted. It's just for readability.
Right. As soon as the browser sees the code tag, it knows to basically disregard it in regards to actually trying to execute it. So it's as soon as it sees the code tag, it's no longer trying to, oh, I'm supposed to do something with the header in H1 A tag, which is what it's basically showing there. It knows that it's just an example. It's not actually supposed to do anything with it.
Okay. When I put BR tags, when I use multiples, they don't work. So if I wanted 3 line breaks and do BR, 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 I only still get 1 line break. And this is because BRs are treated similar to spaces by the HTML browser. And this is where it gets So you want to take it?
Well, that's not always true.
Right.
And this does bring up a good thing. Using multiple BRs is bad form. Many times it will work. So here's an example. Let's take let's see. We'll get rid of that now that we've redone it. Let's say that I'm going to type in some random text. Okay. Right now, we're going to get space above this, even though it's not wrapped in a tag at all. We're going to get space above it because, again, with the understanding of block level elements, the block level tags, this H2, it causes margin or extra space to be above it and beneath it. And it also forces the text or whatever comes after it to a new line. So this is actually going to work just fine. It's not wrapped in anything, but it'll display kind of similar to the way a paragraph would. So you can see, hey, guess what? It doesn't show up right behind the H2. It's got some spacing. Looks kind of like I used a paragraph, but we all know I didn't do anything to it, right? So what if I wanted another new line of the same thing? If I put it right here, of course, we're going to get it. Well, we'll just look at that real quick. We're going to get it, just in one straight line. Okay? Just like this. All right, well, what if we want to put a line break between the two, right? I can leave it on the same line. I don't have to move this text down. I can just by using the line break, it says this, whatever follows this, force it to the new line. So I can do that as well, and guess what? We've got a new line. Well, what you're saying now is, well, what if I do this? What if I put in 2? What's going to happen then? And we'll find out. Each browser has the ability to treat it differently. So, bingo, you see that this worked. We've got 2 line breaks now, similar to kind of how, paragraph text is formatted. So then what typically happens, and you see this with a lot of people that are really new, is they start styling text this way, and I'll show you what I mean. This is a what not to do, even if it works. So what you'll see happen is this. So now they got these paragraphs that they want to create, and they start creating them like this. And this will likely work just fine, and it'll look like I'm creating paragraphs. Of course, the first one worked, and the second one didn't. Oh, it's because I didn't put them between each. So that's actually not what I was trying to show. Let me improve this. This makes more sense. Let me get rid of these. No, we'll do one more. So we'll get rid of this. Okay, so here's what we got going on basically. We have 2 sentences, 2 line breaks, 2 sentences, 2 line breaks, and a sentence. And looking at it this way, it's going to look kind of like we're creating paragraphs with these extra spaces because of the use of the line breaks. But this is improper. It's not that it may work, it may not work. It's browser dependent, but it's not the right way to code it. Anything else?
Let's see. Yeah, somebody was saying there's cheats and other ways to force spaces in and get it to do it, but it gets to be browser specific, and you should use proper formatting. Yeah,
as we go through this, you'll gain a much deeper understanding in regards to kind of get how to get your content to do what you want it to do. But yeah, using multiple line breaks like that it may work, but it's not the right way to do it.
Okay, and we're going to be getting into more CSS and HTML and such.
Yeah.
So we'll be showing proper ways. Okay, any other questions here? I think most of them are along the lines of what we're going to be covering in the other sections.
Okay.
So somebody asked, HTML code's backwardly compatible to previous versions, and that kind of, what's going on with that? Is it not Web C3 compliant yet?
As far as, you mean, obviously, so like right now, this is kind of a big topic, but I guess we'll just make a succinct statement, right? It's kind of funny. When I really got hardcore into studying HTML and CSS, it was right at the time where HTML 1.0 had come out and 1.1 was under development. Excuse me just a second. And all of the books basically said that XHTML was going to be where it was at, that there was never going to be an HTML5 before HTML4. Of course, there was 3 and other versions. HTML5 would never exist, and everything that was going to happen from here on out was going to be some variant of XHTML. Of course, we all know now that that's not true, and all my books that say that are all antiquated, but things are moving towards HTML5, and we're not going to get into the specifics necessarily of coding HTML5. We'll talk a little bit about it as we go on. But please note that right now, the browsers will display HTML 4.01 and any variant of XHTML just fine. Most browsers will display at least the main core elements of HTML5 just fine as well. Some of the new stuff inside of HTML5 is more, I was going to say experimental. That's not really true. It's just it's newer and it's not fully supported by all browsers, which is why it's interesting. I hear a lot of people even right now. They're like, well, we created the Mobile Web Pro templates, and we created those in a specific version of XHTML, which is beyond the scope of this discussion. But people are asking me all the time, well, when are you going to recode it into HTML5, and how come it's not HTML5 now? Just know that HTML5 is where things are moving to, and this course, what we're teaching you here, is going to prepare you to move forward. We're not going to teach you HTML 4.01 coding standards, because a lot of those coding standards are now they're now antiquated and no longer used. If you have a really good understanding of how to code proper documents for XHTML, then moving towards HTML5 will be very easy for you, because quite frankly, there's not much difference between the two, except that there's new tags available inside of HTML5 that are not available inside of either HTML or XHTML, and it can definitely do some things like local storage, etc. That's way beyond this course. But I guess what I'm saying is, how do the browsers treat HTML 3.2 and those other versions? I honestly don't know. They probably work, but if a website was coded under one of those old standards, it needs to be updated. In my opinion, even if a website was in HTML 4.01, I'd be probably looking to update it to current XHTML standards, if nothing else. A lot of people ask, well, why not just go to HTML5 right now? And I don't know that I could find it in just 2 seconds. But interestingly enough, let me give you a really good reference. Between now and the next class, if you want to spend some time learning some more and experimenting, my very favorite resource on the web for free education is provided through the W3C schools, which is at w3schools.com. There's tutorials on HTML and on CSS and even, scripting and coding languages like JavaScript and PHP. Just a phenomenal resource that you can go through for free, and something that will definitely help to enhance the learning that you're getting from us. If you do look at HTML5, and again, I don't know that I could find it really quickly. You can see up here it says Learn HTML5. But if you look at this site for a little while, you'll find a statement by the W3C themselves that says basically this. It says that currently HTML5 is not a recommended standard. Even the creators behind it are not necessarily recommending that web designers move to HTML5 at this point. And the reason that is because it's still under development and is expected to be under development for now still a few more years. So a lot of sites are moving to code in HTML5, but even the W3C doesn't necessarily recommend that everybody go out and just do it. I think that the important thing to note in regards to HTML5 is kind of this, without getting way too far off topic. There's a number of new tags I just mentioned inside of HTML5 that don't exist anywhere else, tags like for video and audio, etc. You can't use those unless you're using the HTML5 standard. But I think one of the safe ways to kind of code in HTML5 is to, and we'll probably show this later on, but you can get a page to validate in HTML5 where you're really not using any of the brand new tags, and then basically just have it ready for when you do want to use the new tags is the best way I can explain it. If that makes no sense right now, just don't worry about it. We're going to be covering basically HTML and XHTML coding as part of this, just because XHTML coding will get you fully ready for what's to come in HTML5.